Good morning. I'm Kim Bottomley, and I'm president of Wellesley College. It's my honor and privilege to welcome you to the inaugural Women in Public Service Institute. I want to first give a warm welcome to the 49 delegates who have traveled far to be here today. Our delegates are from 23 countries, and you can read their very impressive biographies in the program. Many of them have had incredible journeys just to be with us today. On behalf of Wellesley College, we are delighted to have you here. I want to take a moment to recognize two Wellesley alumni who will join us later today. Former U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, Wellesley class of 1959, and current U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, Wellesley class of 1969. Both Secretary Clinton and Secretary Albright continue to set the standard for what it means to be a leader in public service. We are also joined today by Ambassador Michelle Sisson, Wellesley class of 1981, and Farah Pandith, who is a special representative to Muslim communities for the U.S. State Department. I'm also delighted to welcome Lori Bettison Varga, the president of Scripps College, and to welcome back my predecessor, President Emerita Diana Chapman Walsh, Wellesley class of 1966. There are many people without whom today's events and this institute would not be possible. The first is Rangita de Silva de Alwis, the director of the Women in Public Service Institute. Rangita, where are you? I can't see you. Where? Ah, yes, I want people to look at you because you have really been very important to the success of this. Rangita is a human rights lawyer, a scholar. She's the director of international policy programs at the Wellesley Centers for Women. Rangita has done a remarkable job building this first institute from the ground up, developing the curriculum, bringing in the top experts in the field, and managing all aspects of the institute. Rangita, thank you for your amazing, amazing effort. Thank you. I think I'm thanking Rangita now, but I would hope we would all thank Rangita throughout the Institute's 2 weeks. I would also like to recognize the Institute Planning Committee, which provided excellent guidance and insight as the Institute's curriculum was being developed. This group is chaired by Kavita Ramdas. Kavita is the executive director of the Program for Social Entrepreneurship at the Freeman Spogli Institute for International Studies at Stanford University. And she was previously the president and CEO of the Global Fund for Women. Finally, I also want to collectively acknowledge those others who are with us today, serving as mentors and area experts at the Institute. This includes some of our old Wellesley alums. I welcome you back to campus. Thanks for being here. Wellesley College is honored to host the first institute and to be one of the founding partners of the Women in Public Service project. The project, as originally conceived, is a partnership between the U.S. State Department and members of the original Seven Sisters Women's Colleges, Barnard, Bryn Mawr, Mount Holyoke, Smith, and Wellesley. The project was the inspiration of Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and it became a reality because of the drive and the vision of Farah Pandith. Thank you. Programs are already being planned for next year at Smith, Bryn Mawr, and the Asian University for Women, and at the West Coast Women's Colleges. So this is something big that we're just beginning here, but will continue on in time. I know you delegates will benefit tremendously from all that happens during the 2 weeks in this institute. You will actively engage in rigorous thought and debate in small and a safe learning environment. You will learn from and be inspired by those around you, from our area experts and mentors, but also from your peers. You will celebrate your differences and learn from the diversity of perspectives, backgrounds, and experiences that all of you bring to the Institute. And you will begin to build a global network of sisters who you will be able to count on in the months and years ahead. Through this Institute and the Women in Public Service Project, I know Wellesley and all of our sister colleges can further perpetuate what all of us already do well, and that is preparing women for leadership. We all believe, and I know all of you believe, that the most powerful engine of social change is an educated woman. The Women in Public Service Project is important to those of us at women's colleges. And let me tell you why from the perspective of Wellesley College. For over 135 years, Wellesley has invested in women and in the leadership potential of women. We graduate women who go on to make a difference in the world, often giving back to the community in form of public service. You know about our two alumni U.S. Secretaries of State, but what you might not know is that Wellesley has many other examples of alumni who are public service leaders in the U.S. and around the world. Wellesley alums include the first woman appointed to the U.S. Court of Appeals First Circuit, and later the first woman appointed Chief Judge there. The first woman appointed to the U.S. Court of Appeals Second Circuit. The first female ambassador to the Philippines. The youngest elected member of the Luxembourg Parliament, a senator in Thailand who has received the highest honor awarded to women there. We have U.S. ambassadors, U.S. senators, and many alums at all levels of the U.S. State Department. And there are many others, but the point is, no matter their rank and no matter their title, these women share a determination, as you do, to make a difference in the world through public service. Let me close by saying again how delighted I am to have you delegates with us for the next 2 weeks. I hope this Institute will both be inspirational and transformational for you, and that you take what you learn here back to your home countries and continue to make a positive change. The world needs your leadership. Remember, this Institute is just the beginning. You will continue to be supported through the network of this Institute and the resources provided by the Women in Public Service Project. What you do truly matters to all of us. It is important to your country and it's important to the world. I look forward to hearing about your future successes as leaders, but more important than that, I look forward to the many, many women who will be inspired by your successes to become active in the public sphere themselves. You are an amazing group of women. Welcome to Wellesley. Thank you.
Special Representative Farah Pandith, a graduate of Smith College who devoted much of her professional career to public service, is one of the chief architects of the Women in Public Service Project. She has championed the need to provide opportunities for women around the world who are engaged in public service to come together in order to learn more from one another, from our colleges, and from leading experts, and to leave sustained in their commitment to lives of public service. Farah Pandith was appointed to the newly created position of Special Representative to Muslim Communities by Secretary Hillary Clinton in June 2009. Her prior government positions include, among others, Special Advisor to the Assistant Secretary of State for European and Eurasian Affairs, Director for Middle East Regional Initiatives for the National Security Council, and Chief of Staff for the Bureau for Asia and the Near East for the U.S. Agency for International Development. She received a master's degree from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University. Please join me in welcoming Special Representative Farah Pandith.
Well, good morning to everyone. I am so happy So happy to look out and see this wonderful group in front of us. I would like to thank President Bottomley for hosting us here today, but also for her warm and wonderful vision to do this first Summer Institute here. It's going to be a dynamic and amazing couple of weeks. It is an honor to be in a room filled with such energy and passion on an issue that we all know is exceptionally important. I would like to thank each of the sister colleges as well, who are the founding partners in this project with the State Department. Barnard, Bryn Mawr, Smith, Mount Holyoke, and of course, Wellesley College. And each of the college presidents who have made it their commitment and their vision to make sure that this happened in the way that was the best possible way to roll this out. The amount of time and care that each of these presidents has taken is unprecedented, and I really, from a personal perspective as well as a professional one, would like to thank each of them. This is groundbreaking, and obviously it's very historic as well. But I also want to thank, and I know President Bottomley did this, but the steering committee that has worked diligently to make this happen. And if you would please just allow me to ask those of you who are on the steering committee who are here today, as well as wonderful Rangita, to please stand up and be recognized. They have been in the trenches day in and day out thinking about the big and small pieces of this dynamic and wonderful vision. I also, though she is not here, would like to publicly thank my colleague and friend, Ambassador at Large for Women's Empowerment, Milan Verveer. She has been a partner in this initiative, and she will be speaking here at the Summer Institute later on in your two-week experience. Now, as a graduate of Smith College, I know personally the power of bringing smart and talented women together and giving them the tools to be leaders and to thrive. Seeing the Women in Public Service Project come alive through great and new partnerships is wonderful. It is a historic initiative, and it is the marking of something that will benefit mankind and womankind. I'm incredibly inspired by the 49 women who are here today. For the next 2 weeks, you're going to take part in what I know will be an experience of a lifetime. You're going to bring leadership to a new level, and it will affect you both personally and professionally. You should know that absolutely everybody in this room, and those of us who have been watching from afar, are standing by your side and will be at your side to sort of help you move forward, not just today, but in your future incarnations. We are so incredibly proud of the fact that you are here and that you were selected, but incredibly proud because we know the mountains that you are going to climb, and we are standing by you to help you. This is a stellar group of women, and I know that all of you have the little handbook that's out there that can read their backgrounds. But I will tell you that in the course of the conversations of choosing these incredible women, the stories behind these women are not often told. You'll hear some of those stories today, later on today. But I want for those of you who are not part of this crowd, who are looking at these women and think, goodness, they've made it. They're just beginning. They have advanced in amazing ways, but their future is what we help give them and the tools that we give them, and we are sisters in this journey with you. Now, I wanted to take a moment to set the stage of the Women in Public Service Project and tell you where all of this kind of came from. We live in a world where 50% of the population is female, yet we are not nearly at that percentage represented in governments worldwide. Only 20% of all parliamentary seats across the globe are occupied by women. Only 16.7% of all ministerial positions are held by women. And in the United States, only 22% of all statewide elective executive office positions are held by women. These are just some statistics, but we all, of course, have had our own firsthand experiences. I remember in 2006 when I was working at the White House, sitting in the Situation Room talking about an issue around countering violent extremism and getting really passionate about the conversation, and then all of a sudden looking up at a packed room and realizing I was the only woman in that room. Good leadership, decisions, both policy and politics, cannot take shape if half the world is not represented. We need women in public service in a wide variety of ways. This is why in 2010, right here on the Wellesley College campus, in a building not far from this, in a room where I sat with the 5 college presidents together to talk about what we could do to make a difference. We understood that we had to do something and plan how to change the world. Now, we understand that there's a black hole out there and it needs to be filled. The world has had conversations about women around the boardroom table. We've had conversations about women in education as tenured positions. We've had conversations about women in a wide variety of professions. Why aren't we having the conversation about women in public service? It was time to do it, and the time is now. So it's 2012, and we're going to address this problem. This is the moment when we raise the issue of how many women are moving into careers in both policy and in politics. This is the moment to do more than we've ever done before. At the State Department, our goal is to shape and sustain a peaceful, prosperous, just, and democratic world, fostering stability and progress. We know our bottom line cannot be met if women are not part of their governments. In Liberia, women were the linchpin to bringing lasting peace for their country. And last year, when I visited the Terai region of Nepal, it was women who had been trained as public health workers that were reducing infant mortality and training men and women to fight disease. In my role as special representative to Muslim communities, I hear women all around the world speaking loudly about how they want to be part of policy. We must do more. We are ringing alarm bells. We are shouting from rooftops. And of course, we're telling the world on Twitter, women in public service is the next frontier. We're beginning to see some results, in some cases. In 2012, for example, 10% of the Afghan Military Academy's class will be women. And by 2014, Afghanistan expects to field 5,000 women Afghan National Police officers. Last December, Christine Lagarde told us at the launch of the Women in Public Service Project in the State Department, when she was speaking to the whole crowd, that she passes out a list of outstanding women when male colleagues say they can't find any qualified women. It will take all of us working together to reach our goal that by 2050, 50% of public servants are women. But for the State Department and our partners, this is a long-term investment. It is investment in the future of decision-making through one of the most powerful tools in our toolbox, women. The Women in Public Service Project Summer Institute, starting here today, is growing a new generation of women that want to take an active role in shaping the future of their countries and their communities. Good luck to the amazing Institute participants, and congratulations for being selected in this inaugural class. You will make a difference to our world. And thank you again for being here today to mark this special moment and to recognize the important contribution the Women in Public Service Project will make to our collective future. Thank you, good luck, and congratulations.
Good morning and new beginnings to my 49 sisters from around the world, and good morning to our honored guests. This Women in Public Service Projects Institute at Wellesley College celebrates President Bottomley's commitment to and enduring belief in the power of women's education to transform global public service. And on behalf of our delegates from around the world, I want to thank you, President Bottomley, for making this historic institute possible and for realizing the vision of the project's architects, Ambassador Vivier and Special Representative Farah Pandith, the powerful forces behind this initiative. Wellesley will never be the same again because of this institute and the women leaders who are with us, who will transform this space and our communities. In every generation, there comes a call to action. And President Bottomley, you, together with your founding partners, made it possible for us to heed that call and join a movement that sees women's leadership as the central moral imperative of our times. A leader who has inspired this institute every step of the way is Kavita Ramdas, the head of the planning committee. Few can match Kavita Ramdas's journey as a leader. We all are familiar with her story as the head of the Global Fund for Women, the largest grant-making organization for women's human rights around the world. Her countless awards, her many fellowships, including with the Aspen Institute and Stanford University, her leadership on boards of trustees that span, to just name a few, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Princeton University, Mount Holyoke College, and the Asian University for Women. Her newest brainchild, the program on social entrepreneurship at Stanford, is emblematic of the way in which Kavita imagines transformative social movements. Kavita, you're passionate about words, both the spoken and the written word, and their power to transform both tyranny and traditions that disempower both men and women. One of Kavita's influential writings, Nothing Short of a Revolution, How Women's Movements Are Changing Our World, traces the epic journey of women who have transformed communities and countries. In the final analysis, Kavita urges us to, in her words, with a degree of humility, listen to the women of the world and learn from and with them as they articulate an alternative vision of a future. It is that call that inspires this institute, and that is the bedrock on which this institute is founded on. Your own story, Kavita, is intertwined with the generations of women that the Global Fund partners with. You have shared much with them, but they have enriched you more. That is what defines you as a leader and the lessons of leadership that you model for us all. When you speak, Kavita, we hear the voices of women whose journeys you share and support. Zakina Yacobi, the tireless crusader for girls' education in Afghanistan, who uses her religion as a tool of empowerment. Nobelist Leima Bowie of Liberia, who resisted tyranny and oppression in the face of death. In your journey, we also see the powerful journey of Musokwa, who is with us today, who started a grassroots movement and went on to become the first Minister for Women's Affairs in Cambodia. We also see Hina Jilani of Pakistan, who will join us tomorrow, who dared to challenge honor crimes, even while dodging an assassin's bullet. They are mirrored in your journey because you draw strength from them and walk in support of them. When you speak, we hear the many voices of women, women as leaders, women as caregivers, women activists who embrace traditions, women who are veiled and women who are unveiled. In your narratives, we see the images of women who connect across boundaries and borders in search of solutions. And those are the central pillars of this institute. By honoring your continued journey, Kavita, we celebrate all those shared dreams of our delegates, who will now join this movement to achieve full and equal representation of women in decision-making, both in the family and in public. On behalf of the Institute at Wellesley College, I invite you, Kavita, to welcome our honored guests and our wonderful delegates. Thank you.
Salam, namaste, and good morning. It's really an honor to be here. I'm delighted to be with you all. As Rangita said, I am particularly excited to be with and look out on this, what is a microcosm of women of the world. And as I thought about looking at familiar faces and faces that I'm not so familiar with, I was reminded of a slogan that I grew up with in the early 80s in India, going to marches with my mother against the dowry murders that were becoming more and more obvious in India in the early 80s, and in our attempt to overturn the rape laws in India, which at that point required a woman to prove that she had been raped rather than the other way, to have more onus on the perpetrator. And this is how that slogan went. We used to have our arms up in the air and we used to shout, "Hum Bharat ke nari hai." We are the women of India. Phool nahi chingari hai. We are not delicate flowers. We are passionate sparks for change. And I think that we could do that right here. And I think of this institute as being not a place that is separate from that struggle of transformation, but rather as a kiln, as an oven for those sparks of change. This is where we are going to see that kind of transformation. I've been honored in my many years as a feminist and as a human rights activist to learn something about these sparks that catalyze change. As Rangita said, my own life has been significantly enhanced by that. And I have been particularly humbled to realize that those sparks can exist and remain and actually grow stronger and burn brighter, even under the most repressive of political regimes, under the most difficult of personal family situations, and under the most conservative versions of religious traditions. I have seen that spirit of transformation in public housing in Chicago with women who dared to brave the gangs in Chicago when Chicago police were not willing to go into a public housing community. I've seen it amongst rural women in Nepal who protected the last remaining forests on their mountainside from loggers with their own bodies by creating circles around it. I have met teachers in Zimbabwe who dared to challenge the sexual abuse that their students were experiencing inside the schools by providing a safe space. Women like Betty Makoni, who created the Girl Child Network in Zimbabwe. Indeed, in some ways, I would argue that to be a woman in today's world is to be a public servant. And I want us for a second to think about that. What do I mean by this? I mean that we live in a world, as Farah already described for us, that is a world where women carry an unequal and a disproportionately heavy burden when it comes to maintaining and preserving the public good. For that is, after all, what we mean when we say public service. Service in what? To what end? As those who gather fuel, who gather firewood, who gather water, who raise crops and feed the children and look after the old and infirm, as those who provide that precious commodity of caring, from the most humble, almost every woman, I could argue on this basis, from the most humble peasant in Bangladesh to the amazing and illustrious and very much better known women who you've just heard, Ambassadors Milan Vivier, Secretaries of State Hillary Clinton and Madeleine Albright, almost every one of them, in some sense, knows what it is to be serving the public good. Indeed, in the United States, many would argue that the entire social sector, from parent-teacher associations to soccer clubs, to museums and legal aid clinics, is powered by the strength of women. It is powered by women who are serving the public good by putting their time, their talents, their treasure, or funds to ensure that our communities are enriched and sustained by the many small things that we take for granted. In the cities and towns of Western countries, women may not be carrying baskets of fuel and firewood on our heads, and they may not be carrying water on our heads, but they are also carrying heavy burdens of community care that go far beyond simply feeding and caring for their own families. Yet, for millennia, I would argue that this form of public service was never actually recognized as being what it was, service in the public good, the sustenance and the preservation of a community fabric without which none of our societies can survive, much less thrive. One of my favorite grants that we made at the Global Fund for Women was to a group of women in Barcelona in Spain in 2002 or 3. They had a wonderful slogan for their activism. They wanted to create a public strike of workers on March 8th, which is International Women's Day. And the slogan they had was, "Cuando las mujeres paran, todo se para." When women stop, everything stops. And they had just one request of women, whether, quote unquote, they were working women or whether they were just women at home. They said, just for one day, don't do the things that you normally do. Don't cook, don't clean, don't wash the kids' clothes, don't take them to school, don't go shopping, don't take them to the park, just don't do what you normally do. And for those who could come to the square in Barcelona, let us collect and be in the square. That day, the city of Barcelona came to a grinding halt. There was nothing happening. There was no GDP being rung up in cashiers. There was nothing. And the women of Barcelona made a statement with that, which is to say the invisible, remarkable, consistent, persevering work of women is what keeps this planet spinning, is what keeps our fabrics of community alive. And this form of public service is the first form in which those of us who are given a chance to serve have to be able to draw on. Because now as you all choose, as we choose, to step into this more publicly recognized form of public service with capital letters, this world that has for so long been the domain of men exclusively, I want us to remember that we as women come with this proud other legacy of public service, not to put it down, not to feel embarrassed by it, but to be proud of it and to remember that in our moments of crisis, we too can draw on that long and rich and powerful legacy. On the grandmothers and sisters and aunts who have nurtured and cared for and sustained the public good without being elected to office, without being named commissioner or being the head of an NGO. Indeed, in some sense, maybe we could argue this is what Eleanor Roosevelt meant when she said, where after all do human rights begin? In small places, close to home, so small you cannot see them on a map. To choose to inhabit this new space of public service with the big capital letters is a relatively new experiment for us as women. Our movement is one of the world's youngest, barely a century or so old. And our stepping outside into the frameworks of power and decision-making outside of the domestic constraints of family is also relatively new. And as with all things new, we will face different kinds of challenges in building our own confidence about how best we can and should lead. I grew up in a country with a very strong woman leader in the 60s and 70s in India, Indira Gandhi. And I learned afterwards that there was much about her style of leadership that I didn't necessarily agree with, particularly riding roughshod over democratic principles. But I know it made a lasting difference to me personally to realize that my father's boss was a woman in a sari and that she ran our country and she did it quite effectively. Thank you very much. It made me believe that I was absolutely capable of running a nation myself. And just seeing her in the papers and hearing her on the radio was proof. We have had other strong women leaders across the world in that vein, individuals whose presence did not necessarily open the doors for larger numbers of women to have a space in the public and political world. We can name them Margaret Thatcher, Golda Meir, Benazir Bhutto, Srimati Bandaranaike, and many others. Yet for many of these early women leaders in the public sphere, being in public service meant that they should be able to show that they could be as strong, as ruthless, as aggressive as their male compatriots. They were not allowed to call on that legacy that I spoke of earlier, that earlier legacy of being women in public service. In the past few decades, this approach to women's leadership, thankfully, has begun to change. As you see, women like Ellen Johnson Sirleaf in Liberia being comfortable with the fact that women call her Ma Sirleaf and recognize her role as a woman and as a grandmother. As you see women like Michelle Bachelet, who now heads UN Women and was the former president of Chile, I don't know how many of you remember her acceptance speech as president. It was the first acceptance speech I've ever heard that talked about love. That is a different kind of women's public leadership. As we've entered into these playing fields of both private and public sector leadership, women are realizing that it is not enough for us to sit at the tables of power. It is not enough for us to be in the game. We are realizing that there is something very wrong with that game. And we are realizing that it is up to us, those of us who are now coming to sit at that table, those of us who have been excluded from those tables for so long, to call out what is wrong with the game itself. We are realizing that the world men, because they were the only ones who were given the opportunities to create that world, have designed and created for politics and economics is not the same as a world in which humanity and the planet will be happy or well cared for. And as women in public service, therefore, we must ask to do more than just sit at the table. We must ask ourselves the hard questions about what kind of game it is that we are playing to begin with. We must have the courage to challenge the status quo from our place as people who have been denied opportunities and who have served the public good in our own way. We must make our service count at village levels, in towns, and at national and international levels by pushing for a world that speaks out against injustice, whether it is about rescuing stranded people on the rooftops of Louisiana during Hurricane Katrina, or whether it is addressing the crises of those who have been affected by an earthquake in Haiti. We must be the ones who challenge the fundamental morality of a world in which we talk about peace, but we spend a staggering US $1.339 billion worldwide in military budgets, nearly $4 billion a day, with the US itself accounting for more than half of that. Since 2001, United States military spending has increased over 70%, all the while accompanied by severe cuts in Medicaid, in healthcare, in education, in social services, and in job training. We cannot afford to repeat these in the parts of the world that we come from. People in our countries simply cannot afford those trade-offs, neither can they afford them here. And finally, we have to push for a world that lives in accordance with its own means. In the planet's case, that means thinking about sustainable living. Our means are what the planet has, these resources. So as Gandhi would put it, there is more than enough in this world for everyone's needs, but not enough for everyone's greed. If in that space, we as women can challenge injustice of any kind or discrimination against any group, and transform our righteous anger, which is where many of us begin our sense of wanting to do something to change the world, into a space of compassion for all humanity, then I think it will be a chance for all of us, those of you here and all of us who are public servants in our own different ways, to realize those wonderful words of this favorite author of mine, Arundhati Roy, who reminded us that another world is not only possible, but that she is on her way. And on a quiet day like this, particularly in a wonderful space like this, we may actually hear her breathing. I thank you for what you do already and for what you're about to do in these 2 weeks of this kiln that's going to create even more sparks. And I know that you are making way for that new world. Thank you.
Over the last few months, our delegates have inspired us with their moving stories of courage and leadership. Their stories reveal that this is a time of historic challenge for women all over the world, but that it is also a time of great possibility for women to connect and collaborate over shared goals. So in that spirit, I'm going to ask each one of our delegates a question, and you will respond briefly, and this conversation will begin a longer conversation throughout the next 2 weeks. So let's begin. Dr. Neo, you are one of the few women in Parliament in Burma. After the by-election in April 2012, Aung San Suu Kyi's party won 12 seats for women in the lower house. There are now 26 women out of a total of 348 seats in the lower house, and not a single woman in the upper house, in the parliament in Burma. You are one of the 6 parliamentarians out of the 123 seats in the Yangon region. And you're one of just 2 women to be elected from the democratic force in Burma. In your campaign in 2010, you urged the people in your township to vote bravely. Vote bravely was your rallying cry. Can you tell us what you meant by those powerful words?
Well, as you know, Burma, Myanmar has one of the worst regions until 2010. You all already know. So we have election in 2010. And Aung San Suu Kyi, our Nobel Peace Prize winner, and one of the strongest opposition leader, she was under house arrest in 2010. And she recommended people to boycott the election 2010 because she believed the election 2010 was undemocratic at all. So I strongly recommended my people to vote very, very bravely, because I strongly recommend them to come out for their homes and not to boycott the election 2010. I reminded them, if you boycott the election, you will never have a representative from democratic force. You will have someone from non-democratic force or military region. In my constituency, Aung San Suu Kyi is living in my constituency, and also her party NLD is in my constituency too. So I don't want to let it happen that. So I often told them to come out for their home and to vote very, very bravely.
Thank you.
Finally, I made them convinced, and I was not defeated by the military regime. So now they are having me as their representatives. And now Aung San Suu Kyi became member of parliament with me, and she's also the member of fighters for women's rights in now.
Thanks.
So today I just have a very simple message for you: to be brave for what you think right. Just be brave. Our leaders sometimes need our leaderships. Thank you.
Thank you, Rania. Last night, our delegates confided in us that they hope that this institute will help them fulfill their long-cherished goals. And Nyo confided in me a few weeks ago that her dream is to be the first woman Minister of Justice in Burma. Nyo, today we pledge to be with you through that journey. And this new sisterhood that comes together will be with you every step of your journey. Nahid Farid, you are not just the youngest woman in parliament in Afghanistan, but you're the youngest parliamentarian in your country. And this institute celebrates your courage. You have said in public that your husband is your greatest strength, and the support of male members of your family has been very important to you and to other women leaders. We cannot agree with you more. How do you hope to build that same support from male leaders in politics for your powerful agenda?
Thank you, Rangita. Good morning, my lovely sisters and honorable guest from United States. Thank you for raising such an important question. And talking about my agenda is because I'm the youngest member of the parliament and possibly one of the youngest politicians among my country. I want more women and more youth to be participated in high level of decision making in my country. And this is an unwanted and ignoring agenda from men parliamentarians. They are not supporting this idea because some of them are supporters of Taliban ideology. Some of them are participating and were participated in civil war through 3 decades that we had civil war in Afghanistan. And also there is a denying culture of women denying culture in Afghanistan. But we are practicing democracy. And I have the right for talking for 3 minutes, as they do, in the parliament. I have the right to raise my card, my green card, or red card, as they do. And we have the same rights, and this means we make them to respect our idea. And they have to do that. Talking about myself, I have a very legitimate and very logical confrontation among men in the parliament, and women in the parliament of Afghanistan are very united. They united because of women issue in my country, which is a critical issue. Also, we established a movement by the name of Green Movement, and I hope one day we can have the Green Party of Afghanistan, and I'll be the founder of it, to have more women in peace process and transition, which is going to be happen in 2014 after troops withdrawal from Afghanistan. Some of my friends just talked about revolution in Middle East yesterday. My friends from around the world, especially from Egypt, Tunisia. I want a revolution for my country. This revolution is an identifying of a new identity for Afghanistan, not only the land of violence and the land of the country of insurgency, but the country of hope and pride and honor one day. Thank you.
Al-Malana, you had a very exciting career as an investigative journalist before joining the Kosovo National Assembly as a parliamentarian. As a parliamentarian, you're very vocal in press freedom, as well as calling for stronger portrayal of women in the media. You have been fighting the stereotypical portrayal of women in the media, and you're trying hard to change the way in which women have been represented in the media. Can you share with us one example of that struggle?
Thank you, Rangita. Hello, everyone. I'm really pleased to be here together with so wonderful women from all over the world. Today I represent my country, Kosovo, the youngest European country, but the youngest in the world, but now South Sudan is independent, it's the youngest. My country, and women especially, has suffered so much from the pressure and occupation by Serbia. And thanks from United States, now we are free and independent, and United States help Kosovo people to realize their dream, to be free and independent. And now we are free. But I realize that freedom is not enough if one part of society discriminates the other part. Freedom doesn't not have any meaning if the equality between gender doesn't exist. So here is our battle, everyday battle. As a parliamentarian and as a journalist before, I realized that media has really a special role to play here in order that women to be present in public debate, in every national public debate, their opinion, their disagreements, their expertise, to be present in order that to change the way that the people think and to be part of the public debate and to change the mentality of the people and to play a big role on the country. How we do? In Kosovo, we are 1/3 of the parliamentarians are women, and we have a woman caucus that is a cross-party and cross ethnicity. That is something very difficult, but we achieve to do this. We ask the journalists to be our partner, to be very careful on their story, on their article, to represent the right work of the woman, especially in public service, but to give their voice the woman in whole country. And I think that after some conferences and contacts and lobbying with them, we realized that now we have a better representation of the woman in the media, and of course in the parliament. This has had impact in the parliament as well and in whole society. And I'm proud to say that Women Caucus is let's say, the place when the people, the organization, different organization from the country comes and lobby in the parliament, because they know that if they cooperate with us, they will achieve their goals. Thank you.
Lama also heads the Women's Parliamentary Caucus in Kosovo, which is one of the shining examples of a parliamentary caucus in the Balkans, and we hope to learn more about that in the next couple of weeks. Jaxilia Abere, South Sudan. South Sudanese women recently held a peaceful nationwide demonstration. "We want peace, no more war," read one of the slogans, and Jaxilia was one of the founding mothers of that movement. This peaceful demonstration was also organized by the Ministry of Gender and Children and Social Welfare. But my question to Jaxilia today is about a particular slogan that she created as the Minister for Labor in South Sudan. This stated mission of the Ministry of Labor, as articulated by Jaxilia, is the provision of gender-sensitive service, gender-sensitive public service. Jaxilia, can you share with us some new economic policies that you have put in place that will positively impact women in South Sudan?
Okay, thank you. Good morning, great sisters.
Good morning.
Yeah, as you have heard, I work in the public service as the State Minister for Public Service. And you know, when you have to provide as gender-sensitive service, it means you have to take care of the gender issues. And in society, there are two people that exist, male and female. And these male and female, they can be adults, they can be elderly people, they can be children, and that means when you are planning for any services, you take care of that category of gender: children, women, elderly people, and the very young ones. So in public service, while providing services, be it employment, health services, all that kind of things, we have to make sure that we take into consideration the needs of the different gender, that is the sexes, male and female. They all have different needs. You have to equitably and equally provide for their needs. And this is what the public service stands for. Everyone in the community have to be represented and their needs have to be answered. And also in this gender-sensitive service, we find that there are people who are disabled. Mm-hmm. Therefore, you have to provide for their need. A disabled female and disabled male, they all have different interests. Therefore, you all have to provide for their needs in public service. And then currently, I have made policies as public service. There is a gender policy for providing services for the people, and it is covering 5 thematic areas. There is gender and governance. This includes equal representatives of women in public offices, and we provide that every public office, 25% are women. It provides for their legal rights, for good governance, and it also provides for their voice in decision making. This is gender and governance. And also we have gender and finances, whereby we have to make policies that encourage women entrepreneurs the government has to facilitate them to have access to loans and also provide law that protects them, because the law is very unfair towards women. And you know that women, they don't have property that can allow them to get loan. So the policy on ground, despite the fact that they don't have those things, they will have access to loans. And also in my country, women are 80% farmers, but they don't own the land on which they are farming. And their products are being sold by their husband, they have no voice on it. Therefore, the new policy will provide for them to own land and to have a voice and decision on the product of their farming. They can sell it on their own and they can be protected. So these are the policies that are on ground. And also for women to be economically active, there is a policy for gender and health, whereby, in my country, the maternal mortality rate is very high. It is because they are poor, it is because they cannot access health. So this gender policy for health will provide improvement for their health, for health primary care, so that they can be in good health. And above all, gender and education. A woman who is not educated, is very difficult for her to raise her voice, to get finances, to do everything. You will all agree with me, all of you here are educated, and education is the tool for the change, for development, for everything. Therefore, education and gender is one of the policy that I have worked on, whereby girls will be given scholarship, and even their admission to college, you are adding for them 5% free, has to motivate them. Thank you.
Wafabani Mustafa, Jordan, we are so proud to have you with us. You are the youngest woman in the Jordanian parliament, and you're distinguished by your clarion call for more women's representation in parliament and for gender equal decision making at all levels in every agency and authority in Jordan. You're also the first woman in the history of Jordan to lead the Change Bloc, a cross-party caucus in Jordan's parliament. As the head of this historic Change Bloc caucus, what is the important next step that you hope to take in achieving your vision for gender equality for women in Jordan?
Good morning, and thank you, Rangita, and thank you for Wellesley College for this chance. Once the great Martin Luther King said, "I have a dream, and I also have a dream for justice and equality and parity for women, not only in my country, Jordan, but to the women in all around the world. I believe from my heart that if the world is ruled by women, it's become less bloody, less war, less corruption, and more security and safety." Thank you. The coming steps in Jordan shall include focusing on amending legislation, especially the constitution and election laws, to ensure the more political participation for women and increase the quota for women. It's very important in Jordan, I think, and forming network to provide support for women and working with young girls in schools and in university. And I think we will help the women to overcome all the difficult challenges, especially the economic and social problem in Jordan. Finally, maybe we need a women revolution in Jordan or global women revolution or spring. because I think women's right is a part for human rights. And thank you very much for this chance. Thank you.
Thank you. My final question is for Rania Ramadan Mohammed Ahmad of Egypt. She's with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Communities. A few months ago, when we asked for photographs from our delegates, Rania sent us the most evocative photograph of all. She sent us a photo which speaks 1,000 words. She's on Tahrir Square with her two little girls with the Egyptian flags painted on their cheeks. And we have memorialized that photograph in your handbook, so please take a look at that. But a few weeks ago, she also sent me a photo of her standing in line to vote again with her two little girls once again in line with her. I told her how moved I was by those photographs, and when I commented on that, she said, these are her words, "I want my girls to shape history and also learn what it means to be a full and equal citizen of Egypt." Those words go to the very heart of this institute. So Rania, tell us in your words what the promise of full citizenship holds for women, all our daughters, your daughters, in Egypt.
Thank you, Rangita. Well, first of all, confidently I can say good morning, ladies and ladies. It's an honor to speak in front of best of the best also. Well, when me and my husband decided to take our girls to Tahrir Square for the revolution, we decided that it's a historic period of Egypt that we have to make them live and take part of, and to feel that they have a role towards their country, even they are 8 years old and 4 years old. And in the beginning, they were very afraid of the crowd and the voices and loud voices and screaming and whatever. And then the next time they asked us if they can go again to Tahrir Square because they feel their self-esteem. So after a year and a half from the revolution, my little girl, she asked me if she can join me to go to the elections. So I told her it's a very long line that you will keep almost 2 hours in the sun with no toilet, no water, no nothing. It's very hectic to go. She said, I want to do this. I want to take part, even I'm not eligible to do it because I'm very young, but I want to. So I took her to the elections. She passed through the whole process. She saw me signing which name I chose, and she put the paper in the box, and she painted her hand. So she had the whole process, although she was very young. The judge in the election committee was very happy to have her as the youngest female participating in the elections. So he had photo of her with him. So she was very excited about taking part in shaping the future and witnessing the history. So my girls made me feel that what's the use of raising up women voiceless and then try to empower them after? We have to start to empower women once they were born. I guess and I hope that women empowerment should start when they were born and should be in school curriculums, not only just 2 weeks course or whatever. I have here to say that long before I was married, I really needed to change the terminology woman to be no men. So, because I had suffered a lot from men in my life, but after marriage and having a very supportive husband has really changed my mind and changed my will to change the terminology from woman to no men. And I really see that we have to work both in integration between women and men. Mm-hmm. We have to empower women and educate men to work together because it's a shared responsibility. And our families will be built together if we work together, not with women and women, men, we have to work in integration. And that made me to join a cause after thinking about no men, to change the gender perspective to include women and men. So we have a cause online that calling to work in integration between women and men, because it's a shared responsibility. And I just wanted to make sure that my kids will build the future they are seeking, not the one I'm building from them. So I'm one family, I'm one mother, having 2 daughters, but I wish that all the 20 million mothers in Egypt will have the opportunity to think at least the way I think. They shouldn't just go on with what they have. They should have the right to ask for what they want. Finally, I have to thank my husband because he let me go for this opportunity while he's babysitting my 2 daughters, demanding them. So thank you all, and thank you, Rangita, and nice to meet you.
Your words are so powerful, all of you, all of my sisters here with me today. Your words remind me of Shirin Ebadi's words. Shirin Ebadi, Iran's Nobel laureate, who once said, "Words are our most powerful tool to protect ourselves, both from the tyrants of the day or from our own traditions." Whether it is the storyteller of the legend of Scheherazade, staving off beheading by spinning 1,001 tales, women have for centuries relied on words to transform reality. And that is the overarching theme of our institute. We will continue to share our stories of empowerment in order to transform our communities and our countries. And in the afternoon, we will continue with these conversations that were sparked this morning. Mentoring is the overarching theme that is woven throughout this institute, and many of our speakers will remain a powerful force of mentoring along with the institute and throughout the journey that our women leaders are embarking on, are already on. And 2 of our mentors, women leaders in public service, Honorable Musa Kwa and Judge Nancy Gertner, will spark a conversation with 2 of our delegates in the afternoon, and this conversation will endure well beyond the 2 weeks of the Institute, and that is at the heart of this program, that what we start today is not something that's going to stop at the end of this Institute, but one that will endure throughout our journey through women's leadership, and that our journey is going to be inextricably interlinked with the journeys of our 49 sisters around the world. Thank you.